we're going to go right now, we're looking at page 54 of Vedic Remedies. It's called Astrological Principles. And even here it says Ishta Devata, Kula Devata, and Guru Devata. But it's saying Kula Devata where it should say Palana Devata. So this printing it's by Sagar Publications, and it was never proofread. Never. It just Sanjay wrote it and they printed it. And if the chapter was too long, they just cut off like the end of the chapter.
He's redoing this book, I guess.
Please, I hope he does.
Oh no, we're only getting complete information.
But just so you know that if it says Sagar Publications on it, be careful. So he mentions here first Ishta Devata, and we're going to say Palana Devata, and then Guru Devata. When you understand the principle, you'll understand why Kula Devata is a little typo. Kula Devata is very important, but Palana Devata is what are the first three we're looking at. And those first three relate to the Sun, the Moon, and Jupiter. And for those who weren't here last week, since we're a parampara, a tradition of Jyotish, we have a tradition, a parampara mantra that we all say every morning, as soon as you wake up, before you even get out of bed, before you brush your teeth, before you pee, you wake up and you say Hare Rama Krishna, Hare Rama Krishna, Hare Rama Krishna. And you chant this mantra before anything else. So that's the first thing that your mind goes to in the morning. So this is what starts your day. Not going to the bathroom thinking, you start the day with Hare Rama Krishna. And Hare is connected to Jupiter, Rama is connected to the Sun, Krishna is connected to the Moon. So it makes the Moon, the Sun, and Jupiter all strong and invokes that energy into your life. Those are the three sattvic planets. And we always want more sattva, more sattva. The whole Bhagavad Gita, if you read it from a non-fundamentalist standpoint, it's all about achieving sattva in your life and the clarity that comes through a sattvic lifestyle and the sattvic mind. So Hare Rama Krishna. So these three deities are very important to us. And as Sanjay says, any other remedy that we use, we're starting with this as our first part of the class was we talked about a certain element of Horror Shastra. Now we're going to talk a little bit about remedies. And so our first lecture on remedies, we're going to go into these three deities, because anything else is a patch. A patch. It's allopathic. Anything else is allopathic medicine.
It's not taking care of the cause.
It's not taking care of the root. It's a patch. If these three deities aren't happy with you, everything else is good. Because, for example, with let's look from an Ayurvedic point, because Vedic philosophy is all the same. If a person has a headache and you just give them an aspirin, which aspirin is a painkiller, the headache goes away. But you didn't remove the cause of why a headache came. And if every day they start, every other day taking aspirin, every day the headache is kind of going away, but the problem is still there, and it's growing and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The aspirin works, and you need to take the aspirin or else you're going to have a headache. So you have to take the aspirin. But you also have to go one step farther and look, why am I getting a headache? And start fixing that as well. You could just start fixing why you have a headache, but it might take a month or two to fix. And you're going to have to suffer the headache the whole time. So the aspirin is good, but it's important to get to the root. So these three deities, these three devas from our chart are the real cure to most of our problems. And they will fix the underlying symptoms and problems. So that the superficial mantras, we don't need them anymore. Let's see, an example with using mantras. So about 3 years ago, I came back to the States and I was trying to find a job. And I couldn't get work whatsoever. I was trying. I complained to Guruji, and he sent me this mantra from Mantra Mohodidi. And it was a Surya poverty-destroying mantra. And I did the mantra, did it so much, got this really incredible job in Ayurvedic firm in San Francisco. And I worked for him for a week or two, stopped doing the mantra. All of a sudden, things changed, and I wasn't at the job anymore. And so I was like, oh, out of work. So I started doing the mantra. I got a job again. Stopped doing the mantra, job went away. So the next job, I kept doing the mantra. And then I kept the job, but I had to keep doing the mantra. That's a patch. Okay, instead of, if I went to my Palana Devata and fixed and made my Palana Devata happy, then I wouldn't have had to have continued once my Palana Devata was happy. So that's a rude example. So generally we give both. And it's always good to make sure that these three deities are happy in the chart. How we calculate these three deities we're going to go into and talk about. But those three deities, we need to make sure that they're happy. And sometimes we can look at a chart, it's exalted in a good house, it's happy. If we see it suffering, we know that there's going to be a problem based on that in that area, and that we need to work on making that planet happier. It never hurts, even if the planet is happy, to make it even happier with the right Ishta mantras or Guru mantras. So the first one is the Ishta Devata. And so when we look at Hare Rama Krishna, the Ishta Devata is calculated from the Atmakaraka. Atmakaraka is the highest degree planet. So anybody in here who doesn't know who their Atmakaraka is, quickly calculate what your highest degree planet is. Doesn't matter what sign it is, it's just the highest degree planet.
Unless it's Rahu.
Unless it's Rahu, then we calculate backwards. Everybody in here know Atmakaraka? No. Highest degree planet. Your Ishta's, yeah. So as I said, we're going into advanced topics, but at the same time, beginners are fully with us as well. Okay. Now we take the Atmakaraka into the Navamsha. The Atmakaraka in the Navamsha is called the Karakamsha. The Atmakaraka, the planet that significates it is the sun. So this is giving us the sun, and the sun is spirituality, right? So we look, now many people disagree about Ishta Devata and this calculation, and they argue it. In our parampara, in our tradition, we look at the 12th house from the Karakamsha. Some people say the Ishta is seen from the 5th house of the Rashi. And so we'll talk about the difference between those two calculations, so that if you come across someone who says, no, the Ishta is the 5th house, you can properly understand why the Ishta. Ishta means, anybody here have a nice definition for Ishta?
Goal.
Goal. Chosen. Personal. So the Ishta, all are good. The Ishta is that personal deity that you like, you have a connection to, that's working with you. And so in the scriptures, the 5th house does say that the 5th house shows Ishta. But the Ishta based on the 5th house of the Rashi they're the deities that you like to worship. Doesn't mean that they're good or bad for you. The 5th house, it's showing what you're desiring and what deities you're going to worship to get what you're desiring. So it's more what you want. And they're the deities that you want to worship to get what you want. It's a physical level reality. It's the Rashi chart. And it's the 5th house, and the 5th house shows the chitta, the mind. It shows what the mind is thinking about, what the mind likes. It's the house of romance, because it's what you like. It's what you're enjoying. It's about the mind. Now, the 12th house from the Karakamsha. The Karakamsha is significated by the sun. The sun shows your Atma. It's the Atma Karaka. The Atma Karaka shows your individual soul. When we take it into the Navamsha shows our Bhagya, our spirituality. It's the 9th house. It shows all about our spirituality and our Dharma, what we need to do in this life. What our blessings are. It shows about our spirituality. So we look at the Atma, the soul, in the Navamsha. Because that's the right place to look at spirituality, correct? Spirituality is seen at this level. It's not seen on the physical level. It's deeper than the physical level. It's on the soul level. And so we look at the Atma at the soul level. And when we talk about liberation, when we talk about moksha, getting out of this world, if we look at the 12th house from the Rashi chart, we're looking at liberation from the body, which is death. So the 12th house of the Rashi chart showing death, showing the hospital. It's showing these kind of things. It's liberation from the physical body. Moksha, true spirituality, is when the soul merges, the individual soul, the Jivatma, merges with the Paramatma, the supreme soul. So that this individual barrier between the individual loses its individuality and becomes one with the ultimate. So we look at the 12th house from the Karakamsha, because we're looking at when we lose that individual sense of Atma and get the big sense of Atma. So when we look at the Ishta Devata from the 12th house of the Karakamsha, Karakamsha is the Atma Karka and the Navamsha, that shows us what's going to give us true liberation.
It's not good for materiality.
It's not bad for materiality. It is the primary for spirituality in your life. To ensure that the moksha marga in your life is fulfilled, the Ishta Devata is most important. As we were talking about the sun with the Krora aspect and this and that, the Ishta Devata won't destroy the physical things in your life. Because if you look at what Krishna teaches in the Bhagavad Gita, he doesn't say, give up and just walk with a pot and a lungi and wander around the streets of San Francisco. He says, be unattached to the things that you have. Realize that they're impermanent, they're coming and they're going. And it's only your dharma to make sure and use them correctly. So at this level, the Ishta is not destroying anything. It's destroying your attachment to it maybe, but not the actual, we're in the Navamsha. Okay.
So it's the ruling.
Okay, so we'll get to that. So now we know where we're looking. Does everybody know where we're looking right now? Can you help her look at the right place? Say again. Yes.
So we look at, first we look at the sun in the Navamsha.
No sun. Atma Karaka in the Navamsha.
So we look at
The Atma Karaka, the Karaka for the Atma Karaka is the sun. But we don't look at the sun, we look at the Atma
we look
Karaka.
at the signification of the Atma.
No, we look at the Atma Karaka.
First we look at Atma Karaka.
Atma Karaka. The sun is just to give us an idea of what it means.
No, I get it. And then in the D9,
In the
we
D9,
look for the signification of the Atma Karaka.
the Atma Karaka itself.
What are you talking about? You're talking about Karakamsha.
Karakamsha is, when the Atma Karaka is the highest degree in the Rashi.
Yeah.
When you look at that same planet in the Navamsha, it's called the Karakamsha.
Okay.
When I say Karakamsha, I'm talking about Navamsha. When I say Atma Karaka, I'm talking about the same planet, but I'm talking about Rashi.
Okay. And then you go 12 from it.
The 12th from it. Yes.
Together. Okay.
Okay. So that's where we are. Does everybody else have that clarified?
So what if there's more than one planet in the 12?
We'll get to that next. First, we got to make sure we all are looking at the right house. Some of you know this, I know, but
Sorry about that.
That was quick.
So once we find that, then that house is significating liberation. And does anybody know the exact name for it? But it's slipping my mind right now, but it's like Kavalyamsha. It's something of the nature that the Nadis specifically call it the division of liberation. This is the division that shows liberation.
That is the Karakamsha.
The 12th from the Karakamsha
12th.
is the Kavalyamsha. Moksha Amsha. Mokshamsha, right? Yeah. Mokshamsha. Okay, and then once we're there, because that's what's going to liberate us from this individual Atma, so that we don't think that this is my house. We say this is the house that this body is in right now, that the Dharma is of SJC is being fulfilled through. We look at that level. It'll lose that individual attachment. First thing is planets there. If there's one planet there, then that planet shows the Ishta. If there's two planets, then whichever one is stronger. And when we look at stronger, if one's exalted or own sign, then it's stronger. If the planets are the same dignity there, then we go and we look at which one is the higher degree. That's the order. So what do you have there?
In Navamsha, I don't know.
You don't know your Navamsha?
I think I've not been there.
Okay. Well, after a few classes here, we'll all know our Navamsha by heart.
No, I don't know. I don't have any Rashi, any sign, any grahas there.
No grahas there. Next is aspects. And then next is the Lord. I often don't even use aspects. I often just, if there's no planets there, I take the Lord. That's my own thing. Sanjay, he says take aspects.
And sometimes he says just take the Lord.
Yeah.
Does the house in which it falls signify anything?
The house in which what falls?
Yeah.
The house Lord. If there's no planet there.
Right.
If there's no planet there, I use the Lord. There's also a rule about using aspects.
Is that Rashi?
Rashi aspects. Now the reason I go straight to the Lord and don't use aspects, the aspects are the planets that will take you to your Ishta.
Right.
Not the particular Ishta itself.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the Lord of the house. The Lord of the house is the Lord of the house.
Is
I mean, really.
Aspects are just taking you, giving you directions to get there. So
tell me over the order again. First you look at the planets, then you look at
a planet there.
Planets
Then if there's
are
more
there.
than one planet,
You look at the
then we
strong.
look at which one is stronger based on dignity. If the dignity is the same, then we look at the higher degree.
Okay.
And I've never come across a chart where there's been a fight past there.
Okay.
Though there are rules in Jaimini for if that does happen.
Okay.
Though I've never seen it.
Then no
Then-
planets.
Then no planets, I take the sign. Lord.
Lord of the house.
Lord of the house.
What is the dignity?
Exalted, debilitated, in its own sign, with the situation of the planet. If it's exalted, then it's higher than a planet that's in an enemy sign, and you take that. Though often we use. Actually, let's just stay on this for a moment. Combinations are possible to use as well.
Like moon with Rahu, you might go for, Kali or something.
Moon with Rahu?
No?
Saturn with moon.
You go for Kali.
That's Kalika Yoga. Yeah. She has Kalika Yoga.
Moon with Rahu is Kalika Yoga?
Saturn with moon.
Saturn with Moon is Kalika Yoga.
Moon and Rahu's Durga. Yeah, indicates Durga.
And Saturn and Moon is Kalika Yoga?
It indicates Kali. But that's
Okay.
no. Let's go a little bit more into understanding some basic principles before we start talking about the yogas that represent other deities. And there's multiple. Every yoga of planets indicates a certain type of deity. So we can't list them all right now.
So the Saturn with moon is that Kali? Is it
Let's-
Rashi?
Let's focus for a minute. So, once we get the planet, okay, now we use, for the Ishta, we use a Vishnu Rupa, a form of Vishnu. And why I'm enjoying going into this right now is because last week, and downloadable is the whole teaching that Sanjay gave, he talked about the incarnations of Vishnu, which are given in chapter 2 of Parashara. Chapter 2. All the incarnations are listed clearly by Parashara. And the grahas each one is connected to are given by Parashara. And it's given first. He lists other deities later. So it's not that Parashara was a Vaishnavite and didn't use any other deities. But for Ishta, we use Vishnu. Now, from the Karakamsha, if we look at the 9th house from the Karakamsha, we have the Dharma Devata. And for the Dharma Devata, we as well use a Vishnu Rupa. So a person in general should worship the Ishta for spiritual benefit in their life. The Dharma Devata is worshipped when somebody, their spirituality, they sing bhajans, they have a meditation practice, they're materially well off, but they don't know what they're doing with themselves in their life. They need a little better understanding of their Dharma. That's when we look to the Dharma Devata, the 9th house from the Karakamsha. And that planet, same rules that we just used before, that Vishnu form will show the planet that will help us understand why we're here and what we're supposed to do, and will help us make that happen. If my job was to make these classes happen and they weren't happening, then I'd have to worship my Dharma Devata to make them happen. 5th house from the Karakamsha. Do you know what 5th house from Karakamsha is?
That's probably the Kula.
No, it's not there. It's
know.
it's a Vidya Devata. It's where it's the Amsha where Vidya, knowledge, comes from. And for that we use a Shiva Rupa. We use a form of Shiva associated with the planet there.
Do we find that? Where would we find the rest of the forms of Shiva?
We'll get to that in one of these classes.
It's not available?
I don't know. Maybe he has it there. But so we use Shiva Rupas for the 5th house because the 5th house is knowledge. The 9th house we're using a Vishnu Rupa, and for liberation we're using a Vishnu Rupa. Why? Why Vishnu Rupa?
Yeah.
Sattva.
Sattva. You were here last week. Why are we using, Kathy, you were here last week. Why are we using for the Ishta Vishnu Rupa? Gail?
I don't remember.
We talked about this. Who was here before Guruji even came? You two were both here. Were you here?
Yeah.
You were here.
Yeah, we were talking
Are the 9 incarnations?
9 incarnations, 9 planets. Yeah. But why Vishnu for the Ishta? Why not all these other yogas that we were just talking about?
Vishnu is associated with the Sattva Guna.
Sattva Guna, okay.
So that's why we would do it for the more spiritual.
Parashara gives us the Vishnu incarnations of the grahas in the beginning. And remember in the 2nd chapter of Parashara, he says that Vishnu incarnated as the grahas to uphold Dharma and take care of the devas and destroy the demons.
Oh, right.
And we understood that Vishnu manifested to create the law of cause and effect, make sure that the good get rewarded, the bad get punished, and to uphold Dharma, to make sure that everything in this universe flows properly. So Vishnu incarnated as the planets. The planets are incarnations of Vishnu. And so the highest form to worship a graha in is as Vishnu. And so for the Ishta, we go straight to the highest. For the Dharma Devata, to uphold Dharma, we go to Vishnu. When we want knowledge, we go to Shiva.
Do you use the Jyotirlinga?
You can use the
Or the Shiva
Jyotirlinga,
Rupa?
but those are based on the 12 signs.
Right.
Where here we're talking about the planets.
Yeah.
So everybody understand why we're using Vishnu. And so before we start talking about these yogas, it's important to understand the highest. That's the highest. And I don't know, I myself had some bad first connections with some Vaishnavites. And so I wasn't too into Vishnu. So when I first started with Sanjay, I was like, oh, I just want Shiva, you know. I want the Shiva form. And so I took the Shiva form and of my Ishta. And I worshipped my Ishta in the Shiva form of that planet.
How'd that work out for you?
What happened Today I'm worshipping the Vishnu form. That Shiva form took me to the Vishnu form. I needed to work some things out first. And I was activating the Ishta. So it worked on removing the blocks that I needed to get to my Ishta in its highest form. So when we start talking about these other yogas, they're good. And if the person isn't into Vishnu, then give them these other yogas, because generally they'll be into the other ones. You see Kalika Yoga? Are you in the Kali? She has a big old picture of Kali. She has Kalika Yoga, which is Saturn and Moon, 12th from her Karakamsha. On her altar, she has a picture of Kali and a picture of Krishna. And eventually, with enough Kali worship, Krishna will become clear, the understanding. But sometimes we have a lot to work through in order to get that. And Kali will lead. Kali always leads to Krishna. And from this tradition, we go very deep into why Kali, particularly Kali, leads to Krishna. The other goddesses aren't leading to Krishna. It's Kali that's leading to Krishna. But that's another class. So when we look at these yogas, we can use these other ones. We can use Durga for Rahu Moon. We can use Kartikeya for Mars. We can use all these other forms. But our highest form, eventually we want a Vishnu form. And if you don't feel comfortable starting there, that's fine. It's not, yes.
Sorry. So if you have Venus as the Lord of 12th from the Atmakaraka, you wouldn't assume Lakshmi? You would try to go to a Vishnu form?
If you feel more comfortable with Lakshmi and you're not ready to worship Rishikesha or Parashurama, then sure, go with Lakshmi.
Parashurama with the axe.
I mean, I think that does...
That's the one.
The one who killed his parents.
But the highest form that the Graha incarnates, manifests as, is the Vishnu Rupa. And when we want that Ishta to give its highest effect, then the form of Vishnu is going to be the highest. Lakshmi will only take us to that form.
So your comfort level is your criteria for...
It's not even your comfort level. It's a lot of times you're dealing with other people, and it's their comfort level as well. If you tell somebody... So there's a combination given by Jaimini. Jaimini says if Saturn is there, in a malefic sign, the person worships dark deities, does black magic. And if Venus is in a malefic sign there, the person does all kinds of sex tantra and worships those kind of deities that go along with that. So, comfort level, it's not even comfort level. We have, if you tell somebody who's into a bunch of, left-handed dark sex magic deities to worship Kurma avatar, how willing are they going to be to take this form of Vishnu as a turtle? It's not cool enough for them. Their ego is too attached to the form. They're not worshiping the form because it's the highest for them. They're worshiping the form because it's cool and they have some ahamkar, some identity, some identification with its status. They get some gratification from it on a lower level. So at that level, if you can take somebody away from some dark deities and take them at that level into something just a little bit higher, then you'll help them clear some path to eventually get to a higher Vishnu Rupa. We got to take people step by step by step. And even as I said, I had a hard time with the whole Vishnu thing at first because of some past experiences. But then I read Robert Swoboda's Agora series. And he, in his Agora series, it's all left-handed tantric stuff. And he says, his guru says, that Tantra starts with Ganesh. Ganesh is the guardian to the mother. The mother's the Kundalini, which is Ketu, and takes you to the mother. The mother, the Kundalini. Then you go and you follow the mother, and the mother takes you to the father. The father, Shiva, the third eye, and Shiva takes you to Vishnu in the crown. He's a left-handed tantric saying this. And so when I saw this, I was like, okay, I guess if he's saying it, then I can believe Sanjay as well. I had a little fighting there the first year or two with him to, accept this form of Vishnu. But it's a general, but it was attachment. It was my own attachment to these forms of the deity. Because the forms, who cares what the form is? The form is only representing a certain energy. It's giving us sattvic elements, or it's giving us rajasic elements, or it's giving us, it's invoking certain things when we worship a certain form. And we don't understand half the things that it's invoking. It takes years of study. You see how long it studied to read a kundali, which is a few lines and a few planets. How many years it's going to take to learn how to read that properly. To understand what a deity is wearing, it's the same level of training to understand. So unless you understand that, we shouldn't be too attached to what deity we're worshipping, and we should look to worship the deity that's going to be most beneficial for our spiritual life. And that eventually got knocked into my head. So Ishta Devata, and we see the trines from that are also showing something. And so that's connected from the Atmakaraka, which is the Karakamsha, which is connected to the sun. Did we answer all those? So we saw the combinations of Saturn and Venus there. Okay, so we're covered Ishta Devata. Ishta Devata mantras. Guruji, they'll all be online. Eventually we'll have a direct link to it. But Guruji talked about the mantras. Multiple times he's talked about the mantras that go with each of the forms of Vishnu. And they all begin Om Namo Bhagavate. And then the form of that form. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Nrsimhaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Korma Devaya. Vamadevaya. Or Trivikramaya is another name for Vamadeva. Yeah, so all these different names, whether you need T or V for the deity. That's why there's 1,000 names to get that right akshara sound in there. Yeah. So you can get very specific with your Ishta mantra. So that's all available and very easy to go into. And if you need to, you can download Guruji talking about it. And if you haven't heard it and you don't know those mantras, you should listen to his whole lecture on it. So we worship the 9th and the 12th from the Karakamsha with Vishnu Rupas.